Hi there. Roboeconomics is a new type of economics. It's an economics that is needed in order to take into account the effects that renewable energy has on your ability to produce. Because until now you are basically working by the grace of oil companies that get the fossil fuels out of the ground, and our whole society is basically modeled on the fact that that happens and that oil is given to us. Because our country happens to have a military dominance or a financial allegiance that allows it to basically confiscate and mandate or marshal, what's the name, that resource. Of course the resource is dwindling at the moment, so the banks are trying to lend as little money as possible so people cannot spend it on energy. That's my theory, at least for the financial crisis. And of course production will not ramp up because you really don't want people to be hyper consumers anymore. That's why you have all this plutonomy mentality and plutonomy reports, which say that the banks say that they're going to serve a few high-end customers instead of trying to keep alive and serve the general public. That's all because they are 100% dependent on a centralized, distributed fossil fuel energy source. It can be nuclear, of course, as long as it's centralized, as long as they can control the market, as long as there is a market. That's basically why you get all these electricity markets. They're not efficient, they don't help out, they just make prices of electricity very volatile, creating an even more abundant dynamic in the marketplace, making businesses go bankrupt, making them unable to produce. And of course there's lots of services that you can sell in order to counter that. So basically the economist is very happy because he sees all kinds of mayhem and chaos that you can exploit. It doesn't really matter as long as everybody is screaming and running around, you can pick the pockets and you can let's say pull away the beautiful blonde and have your way with her in the corner and whatever you want. It's really there's really no limit to what you can exploit in the marketplace, as long as you control it and make sure that it's dynamic and chaotic and people don't really know where they stand and they're not stable enough in order to basically withstand and ignore it. Germany is a good example, of course, and I talk about Germany a lot, but of course one of the big things that they did was refuse to sell companies to Warren Buffett when he came around. Very smart. Why in the hell would you ever leverage your country on the stock market if you don't need to? What's the function if you don't need to pull cash out of society? It's really a mystery to me every time, or it's not a mystery of course, but the model of dominance is basically that whenever you have a business that you want to start, you have to prove to the bank that you're going to make a profit, and then they might finance you, and then they'll start financing you immediately with like 40-50,000 euro, and then you can start, and you have to have a patent, which is of course a very dubious process these days, whether you get the patent because you're original or if Apple suddenly gets an interest in your patent, then you'll see that they'll be able to file for it first, even if it's using a small tower to wash your forehead in the morning. Apple will be able to patent that. That's the way the market works these days. And of course Roboeconomics is not so much a solution, but it's basically this is what it's going to be like. It's going to be different because the oil is going to run out. And well, there's one option of course, that you get solar methane and everything runs on gas, so the solar methane comes out of the Middle East and you have centralized power generation and it will be renewable. That is one possibility, and that would be fine with me, by the way, because that would be 100% clean energy, and you would also have an abundance of the gas, so you would at a certain point basically realize that you can use that gas for all kinds of purposes, even reforestation of areas that didn't have a forest or don't have a forest anymore, or desalination, etc. You can use that energy for all kinds of useful purposes in order to restore the ecology and try to slow down this whole global warming process by oxygenizing the atmosphere, because you're basically, at the moment, we're putting carbon dioxide and water in the atmosphere. Both they absorb infrared radiation, and we're taking out the oxygen, and we need the oxygen to breathe. Some time ago I calculated that we have, at this current rate, we have 4,000 years to go before we reach the level of oxygen in the atmosphere where we personally get problems to breathe. That's pretty fast if you look at the geological timescales. But there's a very interesting aspect to the whole roboeconomics is that once you understand that renewable energies can be a source of productivity and thus a source of money, of income, it should become very interesting to governments to build their own solar or renewable installations, whether they be windmills or solar panels. I guess windmills, simply in order to have money to run themselves. And that's where the previous video, that's I think a very vulnerable point in the whole public discussion. You can eliminate income tax, which is a percentage of your income, if you use that money to pay off a loan to build a renewable resource that produces as much energy and thus money as your tax payments. So you don't have to pay your taxes anymore. Now maybe that doesn't go for all taxes right at this time, immediately. I have a hair problem. But let's say every year you pay a municipal tax of about €400 or something, or $400 or something. And you know, you can eliminate that in about 8 years if you buy solar panels. And of course your local authority or your municipality or your state can say, well, of course we take a loan out with the bank at 0% interest. So there's actually no cost and the payoff is much quicker. Or let's say the payback or the return on it, what's it? The debt is eliminated much quicker. And then the state and the city and your municipality, your library, all these services that you have to pay for time and time again, your fire department, will have the income all the time to do what it needs to do, and you don't need to pay anymore. So you actually don't need to work anymore. Let's say if all your income would go to taxes, then as soon as you've done that, you wouldn't have to work anymore. That's the whole roboeconomic system, where you say, well, you know, of course, taxes or tasks that involve people, these people have to earn money. But a lot of what they earn, they spend on things that are made by machines. So I buy cheese, and I buy bread, and I buy gasoline, or I don't buy electricity to heat my home. But most of the foodstuffs I have, sadly, are either produced completely mechanically. So my cheese comes from a big factory where the cheese is turned automatically. It's not done manually anymore. I don't believe that for 1 second. Pasteurization of the milk, processing, transportation of the milk is done by trucks. All these processes are semi-mechanized. There's some labor involved, but it's minimal compared to the amount of people that are served. So let's say one guy drives a truck with with 1 million of liters of milk. That's marginal labor. As long as it's structured like that, it's very easy to give that person, even if everybody else is sitting on his ass and one person has to do it, you're able to reward that person differentially. So you can keep that system going. But the point is, of course, that there's many tasks that basically virtually require no work at all, that are completely mechanized. And if you power that mechanization with renewables, then you don't have to do anything anymore. You're only maintaining the system. So basically, the future looks like we have a big there's a whole structure of automatic systems around the world that provide the food for people, that provide whatever products they need, shoes, anything they like. And of course you can buy them from people that make them with their own hands, and you can reward them for that, and they might enjoy that. That's of course not impossible. But let's say the general service will be that everybody can have plastic shoes made out of algae, organic oil, clothes made out of cotton fiber, which is grown with desalinated pastures or lands. You know, you don't have to drown or dry up the Aral Lake in Russia in order to get your cotton. You simply desalinate using renewables, and then you irrigate huge amounts of fields. And as long as as soon as you have that desalination installation, And I found a new technology which can be a very cheap wind power desalination technology. Very low tech and very easy to do, and of course completely ignored by industry. But as soon as you have that all in place, and there's a couple of guys maintain it, and maybe you have robots maintaining it, there's no reason why you couldn't have remote controlled maintenance systems. But maybe you like to live close to cotton fields. If it's all green, as soon as you have all that stuff in place, you don't have to pay so much for your clothes anymore. And the logistics, of course, of those clothes is done with electrical vehicles, or maybe automatic sailing vessels on the oceans, and it doesn't have to be huge amounts of streams all the time. Of course, that's one of the most disgusting aspects, of course, of modern world economics. The world economy is created in order to give the banks something to do, and of course because of basically the gift of the US of oil to China. That's the way US sees it. So the US said to China, well, we are militarily more powerful, so you're not going to get the oil from any place unless we allow you to buy our dollars and buy the oil with our dollars and produce the goods for us. And you'll do that for a couple of years, and then you'll have a manufacturing base, and well, and of course China became militarily dominant. That's what the situation we're in right now. But see, all that shipping traffic is hugely polluting, and it's killing the oceans, and it's really completely unnecessary. You can completely replace that by local manufacturing and based on renewables, but you have to start doing it. So if you want to find a wedge that will motivate everybody, you tell somebody, so you pay €500 every year for year after year, tax for your municipal whatever. Do you want to stop doing that? Yes. Okay, well then demand that they buy renewable sources, which they buy with a loan. Of course, there's no shortage of loans in the US at the moment, so that should be very easy from the government, that is. So treasury loans, and get your renewable energy sources that give you an income of €500 or dollars a year, and don't bother me after 5 years or 10 years. You stop bothering me for that money. That should be a very easy thing to promote. Just another completely different topic, but I was wondering about these aliens, and the economists are talking about aliens, and I think there's one scary aspect of it, and that is there's two scary things that are going on right now. One is that the Dutch Incense earthquake information is quite interesting, in that there's just a large number of large earthquakes around the world, according to him at least. I cannot corroborate, but the 7.1 on the Richter scale yesterday is quite a severe earthquake, and it's constant. So and that of course creates the risk that the crust in the US is softening up. But I'm not an expert, so maybe I should shut up about it. But if that happens, then the ultimate risk is that you get huge eruptions, because there's a mega volcano there, the Yellowstone caldera volcano, waiting to erupt. And it's ironic because there's evidence that it is actually caused by the warming of the atmosphere, because it reduces the weight of the polar caps, which basically morph the Earth a little bit, and that causes all kinds of geological effects. Because one of the estimations was that the ground should shift a kilometer upwards somewhere in Greenland to compensate for the removed weight. Well, a kilometer is a lot in geological terms. So if that happens quickly, then you are in deep shit. Another thing is that the aliens are potentially a way in order to do a little act for the public. My video time is running out. But in order to allow aggression of the US. So let's say the US is aggressive towards the world, but tells the US and everybody else that it's aliens doing it. And who knows what kind of violence that will allow to happen. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy it, and check out the links if I put any there.